She was the face everyone remembered, but the name they somehow forgot. In the glittering world of 90s fashion, Helena Christensen stood at the very top. With her piercing eyes, unforgettable beauty, and effortless presence on the runway, she wasn't just a supermodel, she was a global sensation. From magazine covers to music videos, from the streets of Paris to the pages of Vogue, Helena defined an era. But while other icons of the time stayed in the spotlight, something unexpected happened. Slowly, quietly, Helena began to vanish from the public eye. No scandals, no headlines, just a graceful fade into the background. So what really happened to Helena Christensen? Was it a personal choice? A shift in the fashion world? Or is there something deeper beneath the surface that no one ever noticed? Her story isn't just about fame or beauty. It's about identity, reinvention, and the price of being idealized by millions. As cameras moved on to newer faces, Helena's world transformed, but not in the way anyone expected. Behind the flashbulbs and photo shoots was a woman navigating a life far more complex than most imagined. She walked for the biggest designers, dated one of the world's most famous rock stars, and appeared in iconic campaigns that shaped the image of an entire generation. But somewhere between the fame and the silence, the real Helena was carving a different path one few people ever saw. Tonight, we look beyond the surface and trace her journey from runway royalty to a life far away from the fashion chaos. You think you know Helena Christensen, but the real story is just beginning. And by the end of this, you might not look at the 90s the same way again. Before she ever stepped onto the world's most glamorous runways, Helena Christensen was just a quiet girl from Copenhagen, Denmark, with a dream no one quite understood. Born to a Danish father and Peruvian mother, Helena's beauty was striking even as a teenager, something people around her noticed instantly. But what made her unforgettable wasn't just how she looked. It was the way she carried herself. Calm, confident, and slightly mysterious, Helena didn't chase the spotlight. The spotlight seemed to find her. By the early 1990s, she had become one of the most recognizable supermodels in the world. Alongside names like Naomi Campbell, Linda Evangelista, and Cindy Crawford, Helena formed part of that elite group of women who didn't just model clothes, they shaped culture. Her walk was fluid, almost hypnotic, and her presence in front of the camera was magnetic. Designers begged to work with her. Magazines put her on their most prestigious covers. And when she appeared in Chris Isaak's hauntingly beautiful music video for Wicked Game, her image became iconic. But even then, Helena didn't seem fully at home in the chaos of fame. While others leaned into it, embracing red carpets, interviews, and constant attention, she often kept to herself. She spoke softly in interviews, choosing her words with care, always appearing grounded despite the whirlwind around her. It was like she was part of this glamorous world, but never completely of it. Then, as quickly as she rose, her presence in the spotlight began to shift. She stopped appearing in the biggest campaigns. Runway appearances became rare. Interviews grew fewer. And people started asking, where did Helena Christensen go? There were whispers, of course. Some said she had retired. Others believed she wanted to focus on photography, her quiet passion. But no one seemed to know for sure. While fans speculated, Helena herself remained silent. No dramatic announcements. No tell-all interviews. Just a slow, graceful disappearance. And with that, one of the most intriguing women of the supermodel era stepped into the shadows, leaving behind questions that still linger today. While the world moved on to new faces and faster trends, Helena Christensen quietly shifted her focus. She wasn't trying to hold on to fame the way others did. Instead, she started exploring something more personal: photography, art, and a slower way of living. She began stepping behind the camera, capturing moments that were raw, imperfect, and full of emotion. It was almost poetic. The woman who had once been the subject of thousands of photos now chose to see the world through her own lens. But the more she pulled away from the spotlight, the more people wondered, was this really by choice, or was she pushed out of an industry that no longer had room for her? In the fast-changing world of fashion, age isn't just a number, it's a countdown. The 90s supermodels were once treated like royalty, but even they weren't immune to the industry's obsession with youth. As Helena entered her 30s, doors that were once wide open began to quietly close. New models came in, fresh faces flooded magazines, and slowly the narrative began to shift. There wasn't a big scandal. No dramatic fall. Just silence. And in that silence, a deeper conflict unfolded between the identity the world gave her and the one she was still figuring out for herself. There were rumors, too. Whispers of struggles behind the scenes. A long-time relationship with actor Norman Reedus had ended, and being a mother while trying to redefine herself outside of fashion wasn't easy. She tried to balance it all: creativity, motherhood, privacy, but there was always a pull from the past. She would occasionally return for a campaign or a magazine shoot, and each time, the headlines would say, "Helena's comeback," as if she had ever truly left. But those brief appearances only added more questions than answers. Some close to her say she was never comfortable being called a supermodel, that she found the word limiting, too small for the kind of life she wanted. Others believe she simply walked away before the industry could take more from her. The truth, like Helena herself, remains quietly guarded. As the years passed, she became less of a public figure and more of a mystery, a symbol of both beauty and the cost of being seen by the world but never truly known. By the mid-2000s, Helena Christensen had become almost like a ghost from the golden age of fashion. Not forgotten, but not fully present either. Her name would pop up every now and then, attached to an art exhibit, a small fashion campaign, or a nostalgic feature looking back at the 90s supermodel era. But each time, there was a sense of distance. She wasn't trying to recapture the past. She was deliberately living outside of it. And yet, the more she pulled away, the more the world seemed to chase her image. People began to look deeper. Was Helena's retreat from fame a quiet rebellion? A way of rejecting the fast-paced, image-obsessed world that had once crowned her queen? Or had the industry moved on without her, leaving her to reinvent herself from the ground up? There were no clear answers, and that's what made her story so haunting. She had everything: beauty, fame, success, yet chose to step back from it all. Or maybe she had no choice. Behind the soft-spoken interviews and elegant photographs was a woman who had spent years under pressure to be perfect. Every glance, every photo, every walk down the runway was judged. And after years of being seen only for how she looked, it's no wonder she wanted to be seen for something more. But reinvention isn't always clean. It's not always peaceful. And the silence that surrounded Helena's life after the spotlight left her, was it healing, or was it hiding something? There were subtle signs. Interviews where her eyes would drift, as if holding back things left unsaid. Cryptic captions on her photography posts. Close friends refusing to speak on certain subjects. And then, whispers began to circle in fashion circles, talks of battles behind closed doors, struggles with identity, and a life far more complex than the world ever saw on a runway. The more we trace her story, the more the pieces refuse to fit neatly. She wasn't just a model. She was a woman navigating fame, motherhood, loss, and the crushing expectations that come with being labeled iconic. And just when it seemed like her story had settled into quiet reflection, something happened, something that brought Helena Christensen back into the public eye in a way no one expected. And that's where everything changes. The unexpected return of Helena Christensen didn't come with a big press release or a dramatic moment. It came in her own quiet way. A powerful Vogue cover at age 50, standing strong beside her fellow 90s supermodels. No filters, no tricks. Just Helena, natural and unafraid. The message was clear: she had never really left. She had simply chosen a different path. One where she could age on her own terms, create with intention, and exist without being defined by the flash of a camera. What people didn't see for years was that Helena had been building something far more lasting than fame. Her photography work had grown quietly respected in the art world. She used her lens to tell stories that were raw and deeply human, portraits of forgotten places, aging bodies, and fleeting moments. She also became a voice for sustainability in fashion, lending her platform to causes she believed in. She didn't just want to be remembered as beautiful, she wanted to be meaningful. And through it all, she remained a mother, a creator, and a woman constantly evolving. The mystery wasn't really about where she went. It was about who she became when no one was watching. In an industry that often values youth over wisdom and speed over substance, Helena Christensen made a quiet statement by choosing slowness, purpose, and authenticity. Her story is a reminder that stepping out of the spotlight doesn't mean fading away. Sometimes, it means stepping into yourself. Helena didn't vanish, she simply redefined success on her own terms. And maybe that's the most powerful kind of comeback. So the next time you see her name or stumble upon one of her photographs, you'll know there's more behind that image than a pretty face. There's a story of strength, silence, and survival. Helena Christensen may have defined the 90s, but more importantly, she reclaimed her narrative, and in doing so, she became more than a supermodel. She became an artist, a mother, and a voice that continues to speak, even when it whispers. E1.